A massive heat wave in California is stretching into its ninth day. Earlier this week, state officials warned there could be rolling blackouts. Major outages were averted, but now experts are looking to new ways to safeguard the Golden State's electricity grid. Siva Gunda joins me now. He was appointed to the California Energy Commission as its public member last year. So a basic question to start, how did we get here?
Yeah, thank you, John, so much for having me today. Just to start, I'm a huge admirer of your work and appreciate all that the media is doing to help share the facts. So just kind of getting to your question, for the last 3 years, California has been experiencing unprecedented climate-driven issues that are continuing to compound. In August and September 2020, we had a west-wide heat wave, which was historic in its nature. In 21 and 22, we have a drought that is really deepening and threatening our hydropower. And we're also experiencing fire risk to important assets. And collectively, we are in an unprecedented moment in terms of stress to the grid.
So, Siva, in terms of the stress to the grid, explain the stress or the grid's capacity to respond through traditional fossil fuels, and then what role do renewables play in responding to this crisis of the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the electricity planning as a whole, you look at how can you stack the different resources you have on the grid, whether those are clean energy resources, such as solar, wind, and batteries, and complement them with other resources as needed, such as the fossil power that you mentioned. What we have observed over the last several days is that the clean energy resources collectively has been performing as we expect them to. But the tight grid conditions we have been experiencing in California is really about the historically high loads. So typically at this time of a year, we look at about a 45,000 megawatt load. And what we experienced on Tuesday was a 52,000 megawatt load, which is over 7,000 megawatts higher than what we would anticipate. And that 7,000 is higher than the entire peak load of LADWP, or the Los Angeles Power District as a whole.
So what then are we supposed to conclude? Is it that the move to renewables is great and that worked, but if we're in a climate changed environment here where we're talking about 52,000 megawatts, then, maybe renewables are great, but fossil fuels are going to have to still be a very big part of the mix? Or is it possible through renewables, which might be more easy to access in these crisis moments, that's the future strategy for what looks like a challenge that's going to come back again and again?
Yeah, great question. I think, we are, first of all, going to acknowledge that we're experiencing a new normal and working on developing the necessary cushion that is necessary for carrying us through these extraordinary moments. We believe that on the top of the planning standards we currently have, we need to hold about 10% of additional measures in our pockets to ride through these emergencies. To coming back to your question of how does this fit with the renewable energy transition, the clean energy transition, and the fossil? So the big question here is we need to double and triple down on building the renewables and clean energy resources as quickly as I can. I think it's important to note that the question is not really about how fast we are moving and if we should be moving really fast, but about really addressing the climate change by moving as fast as we can and bringing clean energy resources and not adding to the climate problem.
So a distinction there. So renewables are good, you're arguing, because they reduce the climate problem, and that's good because that's what's causing these strains. But is there a way in which renewables are better equipped to handle these emergency situations, and that's a secondary reason why it might be good policy?
Yeah, the problem right now is really what we call the net peak problem, or when the solar really goes down and you still have a substantial load being carried because of the air conditioning load. So really, it's about deploying a large amount of storage very quickly to balance the lowering of the solar. And as the wind comes up, along with offshore wind, you really have to balance that part with storage. So that's the equation right now. How do you deploy storage as quickly as you can? But on the top of that, given the volatility that heat will produce and these extraordinary events produce, how can you cushion the system with load reduction programs? Can we create load reduction programs that can quickly reduce the load, 3,000 megawatts for a few hours a year, so you don't have to build as much?
And those load reduction programs are not just sending out text to tell people not to turn on the lights, or to turn them off, I should say, but they are automatic systems that, given a signal, will lower the air conditioning, stop the washer, and do it automatically. Is that what you're essentially talking about?
You're absolutely right. It's really about developing those automated demand response programs, not only on reducing the load from appliances that are connected, but also using things such as EVs, which are the future in transportation, to really help reduce the load of a house by moving the load of the house onto an EV, for example.
Right. Okay. Siva Gunda, thank you so much for helping us get through some of that in Davis, California. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.